Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Friday Closeout. I'm glad that you could join me today. And as is my tradition on Fridays, I like to share a devotional thought with you going into the weekend. And today I'm going to be looking at one of the Old Testament books, Daniel. Now, Daniel is not a book, I'll confess, where I have spent a lot of time over the years. I'm familiar with the stories that I learned in church growing up, Daniel in the lion's den, and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the fiery furnace, right? If you happen to grow up in church, you're probably familiar with those stories as well. But as I was reading through passages of it in my reading plan this week, there was a portion of it that really jumped out at me. It's in the very first chapter. I'm going to read verse 17 and then verses 20 and 21. God gave these 4 young men knowledge and understanding in every kind of literature and wisdom. Daniel also understood visions and dreams of every kind. In every matter of wisdom and understanding that the king consulted them about, he found them 10 times better than all the magicians and mediums in his entire kingdom. Daniel remained there until the first year of King Cyrus. Now I read that, and it really struck me for a couple of reasons. One of them being, if you know anything about the backstory to the book of Daniel, it's that these 4 young men were in exile. They had been taken from their homes. They had been taken from their homeland to serve in the courts of a foreign king. This was not exactly a pleasant situation for them. All that was comfortable to them, all that was familiar, was gone. They were in a strange land amongst a strange people who spoke a different language than they did, who had different customs, who had a different religion than they did. And yet they thrived because God gave them knowledge and understanding in every kind of literature and wisdom. And I want to hone in on that for just a minute, because I think that's important for us. We live in a world where we are given vast quantities of information at our fingertips. You can pull your phone out of your pocket right now, or if you're watching it on your phone, you can flip over to your favorite news website. You can scroll through your social media feed. You can open up Apple News or whatever news aggregator you use, and you will have information at your fingertips. You can open up Wikipedia, and you can find articles written about just about everything that you can imagine. You have so much knowledge that you can access. But there's a difference between information and wisdom. There's a difference between knowledge and knowing something and wisdom. Wisdom is the ability to take all of these inputs, all of this stuff that is coming into your life, all this stuff that's flooding into your brain and into your eyeballs and into your ears, and to be able to sift through that and find what is really true and really useful. Now you think about it. These 4 young men were being bombarded by foreign ideas. They were being bombarded by a religion that was different than their own. They were being bombarded by all these different things, and yet they managed to remain faithful. They managed to be able to look through all of these different things, a religion that was different, literature that was different, all these things that were different from where they came from and what they were comfortable with and what they were familiar with, and they were able to sift through them to find what was true. Maybe that's harder for us today because, let's be honest, in ancient cultures, they didn't have the internet. They didn't have the regular bombardment of information and notifications and, the constant need to be up to date on what's going on, not just in the world and in the news, but in the lives of friends and family and people you're connected with on social media, it becomes very difficult to sift through all that information and to actually find and gain wisdom. Because it comes at us so fast. It's like drinking from a fire hydrant and you just feel like you're drowning all the time. So here's what I want to encourage you to do today. Because over the last 2 months especially, man, there's been a lot of information coming at us. There's been information about coronavirus. There's been information about mitigation techniques. There's been information about changes to how you should function in life. Are you going to wear a mask? Are you going to social distance? What are you going to do? All this information is coming at you. And it can be hard to breathe sometimes. So I want to encourage you as you go into the weekend to maybe slow down a little bit. There's some wisdom out there that is tried and it is true and it has stood the test of time. A lot of the news that we get today, not through anybody's fault, but just because it's the way our world works, it's always changing. You might hear something different tomorrow than what you heard today. Not because anybody was trying to mislead you or deceive you, but because our world constantly changes. And it's so hard to find something to anchor onto. Well, I want to encourage you to do what Daniel and these 4 Israelite young men did. They anchored themselves to God. They anchored themselves to their faith. They anchored themselves to those things that they knew were sure and true, and they held fast even in the midst of a culture that was foreign and different than their own, where everything was changing from what they were accustomed to, and they were able to hold fast and hold strong to their faith because they had grasped onto something that was sure and something that was unchanging. If you are trying to structure your life around whatever the latest news is or whatever the latest fad is in social media or Instagram or Snapchat or TikTok or whatever it is, you are going to be like a boat on the ocean tossed about in the waves. But if you anchor your life to something that is sure and constant and steady, something that has stood the test of time for thousands of years, then you will find that even though everything around you is unsure and unsteady, there is something in your life that is constant. And these 4 young men, in a foreign culture, surrounded by things that were unfamiliar to them, anchored their lives in God and in their faith. And that's what I want to encourage you to do, because right now, at least where I am in Texas, people are trying to kind of come out of this and return to some sense of normalcy, but there's still so much uncertainty and so much stuff that changes every day. We don't know what things are gonna look like at the end of the summer. We don't know what the school year is gonna look like. And man, that's stressful. So anchor yourself to something that is sure and something that is certain, especially right now. And as I often do, I want to encourage you to look right here for that. Thank you for watching today. I hope you enjoyed the video. I've got several other Friday closeout videos that you can check out if you haven't seen them, as well as numerous other videos on the page. And I hope that you have a great weekend. I hope that you get some rest, and hopefully you're maybe trying to transition back to something that looks like normal as well. I'll be praying for you this weekend to have wisdom as you consider what that looks like. Thanks for watching. Go in peace.